Welcome back to Principles. We're in Chapter 6, Landlord-Tenant Laws. And last place I left off was the sublease. And we talked about how if it doesn't say you can't sublease, then you can sublease. So I did have a client that was doing Airbnbs. I think I said that in the last class. And she subleased properties in New York and Santa Monica. And what happened was she was making money renting the rents out that she had. So she didn't even own a property, and she was doing actually very well. So when it comes to real estate, you really don't have to own real estate to make money off of real estate. The next part that we're on is it goes on to the sublease. The leasee is still obligated for the original lease, so the person who rented from the landlord. So remember that leasee is the person renting and lessor is the landlord or property owner. So the original lease, so the leasee rents the original property, they're the leasee, and then they sublease it to someone else. Now you could do that on, let's say that you rented a place for 5 years and your lease was, let's call it $2,500 a month. And now you know that rent is closer to $3,000 a month, but you got a job transfer and you're stuck in a lease. So what you do is you go ahead and you job transfer and you sublease it to someone else. That extra $500 a month or whatever it is yours to keep. How about that? So going on to advertising at housing platforms such as Airbnb, you must provide a warning. It says the law requires a host platform to warn a tenant that subletting your room, home, condominium, or apartment may be a violation of your lease or contract and could result in legal action against you by the landlord, including possible eviction. So when a sublease or subleasee subleases a property, he or she holds what's called a sandwich lease. So that's a sandwich lease. When you have the landlord, you have the person renting, and then you have the tenant renting from the other person. So the sandwich lease is a leasehold interest in a property that lies between the primary ownership interest and the operating tenancy interest. The leasee or subleasee with a sandwich lease is both a tenant and a landlord to the same property. So that's interesting. That's how you make money off a property that you don't even own. So liabilities for injury and repair. With the problems we're having with insurance right now, it's a scary thought as being a landlord like I am, because you have insurance on your property and then hopefully your renter has renter's insurance, but what's covered in between the two? So generally, when an entire property is leased, the landlord is not liable for injuries to the tenant or any guests that result from defective conditions on the premises. This is true even if reasonable care would have been disclosed of the defects. Well, this is a California book, and in California, it's kind of crazy right now about all the lawsuits and liability suits. And we're going to talk about that in another video when I go live. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world today of real estate, and a lot of people are waiting to hear that from me, talking about what's happening with the commissions and talking about insurance problems. And that's what we're on right now, insurance. So in apartments or situations where the tenant does not lease the entire property, the liability for the injury in the common areas, that common areas are things that belong to the landlord that you walk on, like sidewalks and areas where there's, let's say, apartments, maybe they have a park area or a grassy area, belongs to the landlord. Therefore, the landlord is responsible to either repair defective conditions in the common areas or be liable for injuries resulting in them. If a landlord has knowledge of a defect or a disrepair, but conceals the fact from the tenant, the landlord is liable for any resulting injuries. So that makes sense. If you know there's something wrong with your property and somebody gets hurt because of the thing that you have knowledge about, then you're going to be liable. It's easy to see why landlords should carry a large amount of liability insurance. So I spoke to somebody who has a lot of properties, like she has commercial buildings and everything else. I just have residential properties, and an umbrella insurance policy is really good. So you have to talk to a good insurance company about what kind of insurance you want to have if you're going to be a landlord, and make sure that your tenant also has tenant insurance, or renter's insurance is what they call it. It's easy to see why landlords should carry a large amount of liability insurance. Building defects may cause serious injuries that could result in a lawsuit against the landlord. The tenant may also carry, there we have it, renter's liability policy to protect against injuries sustained by others while visiting his or her apartment or property that they're leasing. This type of protection is usually contained in the renter's or content policy, which provides protection for the tenants if they, so that they protects the tenants from loss or losing, including liability and personal property damages. So you can see that being a landlord, you do have to take some risks, but in the long run, once you get your home paid off, you're going to have income for the rest of your life when we may not have Social Security coming at us, or Social Security may be too low for you once you get to the point that you're old enough to collect it. So that's our lesson for today on landlord tenants. We'll start again at the end of page 169 tomorrow. Have a great day.